for everyone else who's still there, I'm trying in that presentation to share a little bit what framework we have used when building Azarus. So Azarus is not about NFTs. And we believe that games are not just about NFTs. I think we touched on that previously on the panel, but I really wanted to share a little bit the way that we've approached building Azarus, and especially how that can lead to so much more innovation and so much more cool ideas, and how to use blockchain for games in different and new ways. So first, I always like to start here, and I think I'm kind of the curmudgeon of the blockchain gaming industry because I hate wallets deeply. And if you make a game and you acquire a user and you spend money to get the user through the door, the first interaction that they have with your game cannot be, go ahead, download MetaMask, make a 12-word seed phrase, and learn to use blockchain. This doesn't make any sense. We cannot scale games for 2 billion players if this is what you expect your players to do first before playing the game. So who has crypto collectibles around here? Crypto kitties or others? 2, 3. It's like 10% of the audience, and yet you are all making games interested in blockchain. That's kind of proved my point. So this interaction basically creates so much friction that we are losing players. And all the methods that we have as game developers when it comes to acquiring and retaining your users are basically wasted because of that. So basically, blockchain only works if you don't know it's there. If you have to think about blockchain to understand what blockchain means, players won't do it. It's just not going to happen. No wallet. If you need a wallet to play the game, it's pretty bad design. You may have a wallet at some point once you hit a threshold. I don't think that wallets are wrong inherently, but they should not be needed for that first interaction with the game. You should be able to play the game, learn the gameplay, the rules, and play it a meaningful amount of time, get engaged enough before we ask the player to start dealing with that level of friction. Now, I wanted to touch briefly on that whole NFT obsession that the industry is really focused on. So I was kind of looking at what happened since like 2016, 2015. I think the first NFT game was 2015 on Bitcoin. So there are games on Bitcoin. But it's really interesting how the industry has focused only on that single aspect of gaming, like how do you have true ownership on items. That idea isn't really new. I mean, if you look back in the days, people were owning the item of World of Warcraft, selling it. You have Upskins, who was something before blockchain. They were already trading item on CSGO in a gray market, but still, it's been around for a long time. Blockchain has made it easier, and a lot of cool games have emerged building on that idea that if you own an item and you are able to basically have something of value and resell it, that's a really cool and natural idea that you want as a player. And I think that's fair, but it's a very narrow view that's only focusing on one angle of making a game, which is there are items in games and you can own them. Fine. There are quite a few others angles that make a game. So I basically went back to school, look at the university course, how do you make a game? You know, back to basics. It's really important to always go back to the fundamentals. So what's a game? I like to start there because we just touched on NFT monetization. You need to make money somehow. So whether it's a free-to-play, pay-to-play, subscription, you need to have a way to make money because you're a game developer. Making a game is expensive. You need to have a business model. Fine. You need the space. Space is how the game looks like. What's the art? What's the environment? Is it like fantasy? Is it dungeons? Is it space? figure out the space and the art. That's a very important part of the game, and leads to the IP. Cool character, cute faces, cute storylines. This is all the space. You have the components. Components are really the items, basically, what makes the game. A sword, a castle, whatever you have that's visualized in that game in 3D. Mechanics. What can you do in that game? Can you jump? How high? Can you interact? Can I punch you in the face? How many times can I punch you in the face? And then, but I don't want to punch you in the face, don't take it wrong. It's just an example. Games are brutal sometimes. Rules. If I start playing Rainbow Six Siege, how many damage can I deal to my opponent before he dies? 100 damage, how much damage does that shotgun deal? 20. So I basically need 5 kills, fine. Those are the rules. They guide how the player interacts and what the objectives of the game is. How do I win? What winning means. Maybe winning means being the last in the victory royale, or meaning winning means making the highest score and being on the leaderboard. Different experience, same game. And finally, what's the goal? Which I just touched on. So that's how you make a game. Very simple. Those elements are the component of the game. If you make games, you have had to deal with those before. Finally, one that's very often overlooked. Players. How do you create community of your players? The players are kind of the most important part of the game because you make the game for them. So they need to feel that. And they need to be part of that community. They need to interact one to another. If it's multiplayer, toxic communities are real problems in multiplayer games. I mean, the way that they interact and how you foster those interactions are entirely a part of the game. Now let's look a little bit at the blockchain, because it's really the connection between those two aspects that make blockchain games interesting. So blockchain is basically about trust. It's like if I give you an item, everybody here can see I gave you that item. I don't have it, you have it, everybody agrees. That's the trust component of blockchain. If something happens, everybody can verify and assess, yes, this happens, and it's really, I don't have any item to give away because you have it. The transparency, same thing. I can go and see your inventory and everything that happened on the ledger on your account, what you had, what you sold, what was your performance in the game, how many play times, how much playtime, how much performance, your KD ratio. Pretty much anything that we want to expose can be transparently shown on the blockchain. So that's pretty interesting. The collaboration, once everybody knows what everyone else is doing, well, I mean, cards are on the table pretty much. So it becomes so much easier to trust and work with others in a way that's like beneficial for everybody, because there's literally no way you can hide or you can like be untruthful to your friends or to the people you are dealing with. Everything is trust and transparency, so collaboration becomes a consequence. Distribution, and that's really an important aspect, is that there's not one person really who can change the rules of the system. Once you put the rules on the blockchain through a smart contract and you have a consensus and everybody sees them, you can't really change them so much anymore. Like everybody has to agree. So it's really not, as a game developer, when you start putting things on the chain, you're basically giving away power to your community. And finally, one that's really interesting for me is the fact that blockchain is basically a financial system. And one thing that it does really well is it allows those transactions in a very complex way to settle in one single go. So that comes with a few interesting properties, like if you have tons of users and want through one single transaction to impact all their ledgers, you can do it. And it's very hard to do without blockchain, actually. That's one of the very cool benefits of using that type of technology. Now let's dig a little bit, because my thesis basically is that if you take any single aspect of game development, each and every one of them can be impacted by blockchain, not just the NFT. NFTs are awesome again. No debate, you want to own, you want to have unique things that you can show and that have value and that you can share. That's granted. Animoca has done amazing things with the initial item offering of the Formula One NFT. Been like super well received. CryptoKitties with their cool that cool NBA kitty that they released last year for the finale of the NBA. That was awesome. Like, there's a lot of things that show that unique items have value. People want them, will pay for them, and will trade them. And that's a cool thing. Now, one of the things that is starting to pop up is how you can use the same techniques for art and assets. So there's like two examples. One is the sandbox. You've probably heard about it earlier, how players can create their own items, put them in the store, sell them. So you have a community of players that start collaborating, creating content and selling it, and everybody can see that whether that item sells or not, how much, what's the business model, because you have trust and transparency. Even for art collaboration, things are starting to emerge. So this is Player State, who is making a platform that basically allows players to create the art of the games. And studios basically collaborate with the community and we reward them as they create art. That art gets validated, incorporated into the asset, and has a full copyright and monetization model that rewards the community who contributes to the game. So that's like, if you look at those art and assets, that's a very good use case because you basically empower the community, you get them to contribute to your game, and they become a part of the game. The game is now a little bit theirs since they earn money and they have created content that's now live for everyone else to see. The rules and mechanics, I love that one. It's like the end of tyranny. I play a ton of Rainbow Six Siege these days, and the game designer, they keep nerfing and buffing the characters, and I'm not always in line with their choices. That's maybe just me, but the way that as a game designer you basically look at your characters, like you want to have a healthy community and you want to have rules that are the best from your perspective. But sometimes community has their own ideas, and there's no reason why me as a player investing time and money in the game, I shouldn't have my word to say if I don't agree that you are going to be nerfing the shield-based operator as it was announced this morning, which I strongly disagree against. Shield operator are the best. So literally it's really a way to empower the community. And that's an angle that's very little, I haven't seen that many cases using blockchain to empower the community to decide the rules of the game, and there's no reason. That would be a super cool use case. If you're building a game, just let the players vote whether they want, how they want the rules to change over time. Give them that power. There's no reason to be a tyrant deciding that for them. They have to at least listen to their opinion. That would be a good thing. The goals, setting the goals. You know, like I play Fortnite and I look at Fortnite, it's like 99 losers, 1 winner. That's harsh. So basically allowing the players to set their own rules and play the games how they want to play it makes a ton of sense. There's like good stories on League of Legends, how it started 5 players versus 5 players on 3 lanes, and just people would agree verbally, like let's play 3v3 on 1 lane, just because I don't have an hour and a half ahead of me, want to make it short. And players already agree on those things. Blockchain is a perfect use case, and that's what we've built with Azarus, to allow them to set their own rules, stakes, and rewards, and make sure that this is in a trusted environment. We use the data from the game, we operate those challenges and those goals as a contract, and we execute it. Very simple. So we're looking at the goals, and we organize the competitions. But there's probably other ways to look at it and use the same ideas in a different way right inside your games. Maybe today, the goal is to make more iron, and the one that makes more iron has a bonus, but maybe tomorrow it's about mining copper. Who knows? Depending on your game and what your game mechanics are, allowing flexibility and setting the rules in the games makes a ton of sense. Finally, that's one of the cool things that I think I want to see happening. So who's played World of Warcraft here before? No one? Oh, okay, 2. That's it? Really? Okay, I'm a little disappointed here. So I spent way too much time on World of Warcraft back in the days before they started going crazy and allowing characters what not level. And I was in a guild. And what I really hated about being in a guild was that basically you needed healers, you needed warriors, you needed like a very, very diverse crew to be able to go into that dungeon and make it through. And it was always the same thing. People will debate who gets to be the healer, who gets to be in front, how do you split the loot, who gets what. The healer usually gets not the best deal out of it because they don't make a ton of damage, but without them, basically the party is over. So it's like, and a guild is basically a distributed organization. It's people that are not in the same spot, and they're all working together to get that loot and finish that dungeon. That's a perfect use case for blockchain. People should be doing that. The other thing that I'm waiting for that to happen is like esports team. Right now, esports team have such a big fan base. It's basically a brand and people loving the players, loving the game. I want to have my say on the roster. I would actually want to invest in an esports team, have a few tokens and have a way to impact how the roster is, what teams get to play, what next game they get to focus on, and all those things. Esports could benefit from that level of distribution. And again, it's always the same thing. It's about giving power to the people who like this. If you like a game, you should be empowered. You should be able to have your say and to impact the way the game is made, the teams are made, and all those things. So as a conclusion, I think the takeaway I really wanted to share with you guys is that games have multiple dimensions. It's not just the item. It's a multitude of things. And all those things are opportunities where you can give some power to the player in a way that makes sense for your gameplay, for your vision that you have for the game. It doesn't have to be on a single dimension. And that's kind of what I want to see happen in the next 5 years. And I guess that's why it's part of the Link to the Future track. I think games will be working on all those dimensions in some level, but in a way that creates unique experiences where blockchain brings value, augments the experience, and allows the player to be meaningfully have a stake in that game. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so do we have any questions? Anyone want to volunteer? I think it's so difficult to try and work out where to sort of compass what blockchain needs to be in order to sort of take us further towards consumer audiences, I think, particularly. What would you say is the sort of the biggest barrier of all of the things that we have to face?
I think the biggest barrier, as I mentioned in my first slide, are the onboarding. Yeah. You know, like, so I know that a lot of you guys have been working on blockchain games on Ethereum. Ethereum typically needs a wallet, has gas. I mean, gas is probably the hardest thing to understand for any human being. It doesn't make any sense. Or it does, maybe.
It does if you're the server engineer. Oof. But that's it.
I would argue that for some that I have actually read the documentation and understood it, like most will not have any clue what gas means and why you have to pay for that when the kitty was 1 ETH and you end up paying more. Why? Doesn't make any sense. So you have new technology, like if you look at EOS.io, which is what we use, Generation 3 blockchain, allows for a lot of things like account delegation, and it has a lot of things that you can basically take all that complexity on your side until the user is like ready to man it up and get his own wallet and do it because he wants to, yeah. But it doesn't have to. No.
And that's, I think, really the crux of it. I mean, at the end of the day, and we've got to put players first because security doesn't work if someone doesn't use the system, and we don't use systems if we don't know how to understand them. On that note, thank you very much.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, guys.